Snow fell gently on the quiet streets that Christmas Eve, covering the small town in a soft white glow. Daniel walked slowly with his daughter Lily by his side, her little mittened hand wrapped around his. The church service had ended, carols still echoing faintly in their ears, and Lily's laughter danced in the cold air as she tried to catch snowflakes on her tongue. Daniel smiled, though there was always a shadow in his eyes. 3 years had passed since his wife's death, yet every Christmas carried her absence like a silent guest. He did his best to fill the space for Lily's sake, decorating their modest home with paper ornaments, cooking her favorite simple meals, and telling her stories at night. As they passed the town square, Daniel noticed someone sitting at the bus stop, barely moving. A soldier in uniform, head bent, eyes distant. His duffel bag sat at his feet, the heavy look of exhaustion on his face. People walked by quickly, wrapped in their own joy and reunions, but no one stopped. Lily tugged at her father's sleeve, whispering, "Daddy, he looks lonely." Daniel hesitated, his heart tightening. He remembered too well what it felt like to be surrounded by celebration but still feel completely alone. Slowly, he guided Lily toward the man. "Evening," Daniel said softly. The soldier looked up, startled, as though pulled back from faraway thoughts. His face was pale from the cold, his eyes hollow but sharp. "You heading somewhere?" Daniel asked gently. The soldier shifted uncomfortably. "Not really. Just nowhere in particular," he murmured. Daniel studied him for a moment, then without overthinking, spoke the words that came naturally. "Want to have dinner with us? It's nothing fancy, just a warm meal at home." The soldier blinked in surprise, as if he hadn't heard kindness directed at him in a long time. He glanced at Lily, whose hopeful eyes were fixed on him, and after a long silence, gave a small nod. "If it's not too much trouble," he said quietly. Daniel smiled faintly. "It's no trouble at all." The walk back to their little house was quiet except for Lily's chatter. She told the soldier about the Christmas star she had made for the tree and how she hoped Santa wouldn't forget their chimney, even though it was tiny. The man listened, almost awkwardly, but Daniel noticed the way his shoulders eased at her innocent words. When they stepped inside, warmth and the faint smell of roasted chicken greeted them. The soldier removed his cap and hesitated near the doorway until Daniel gestured him in. At the table, Daniel introduced himself and Lily. The soldier finally said, "Michael." His voice was deep but tired, as though carrying years of unspoken weight. He sat stiffly, his hands folded, watching as Daniel placed food before him. It was simple: chicken, potatoes, a few vegetables, but Michael's expression softened at the sight. He ate slowly, as though savoring each bite, while Lily giggled over her crooked paper snowflakes hanging near the table. At first, Michael barely spoke, answering questions in short phrases. He seemed unsure of how to exist in a family setting after so long in uniform. Daniel kept the tone light, talking about Lily's school play, her obsession with snowmen, and how they spent the morning baking cookies that turned out more burnt than sweet. Slowly, a ghost of a smile tugged at Michael's lips. Lily's laughter rang through the small room, breaking the silence that clung to him like armor. As the meal went on, Daniel saw something change. Michael's rigid posture softened, his eyes no longer fixed on the plate but wandering toward the little tree in the corner, decorated with mismatched ornaments and paper stars. He watched Lily chatter and Daniel listen with patient warmth, and for the first time in a long while, he looked as if he belonged somewhere. Daniel said nothing about the loneliness he recognized in him, but he understood. He knew that sometimes a simple invitation could mean more than grand gestures. And so, as snow fell outside and laughter filled the small room, a soldier who had been alone found himself at a stranger's table, quietly realizing that this Christmas might not pass like all the others. The plates had been cleared away, and the little house smelled faintly of pine from the tiny tree in the corner. Lily sat cross-legged on the rug, humming to herself while she arranged her stuffed animals in a circle. Michael sat at the table still, his hands folded, watching the soft glow of the Christmas lights flicker on the wall. Daniel poured 2 mugs of tea and set one in front of him, then sat across the table. The silence was gentle, not uncomfortable, though Michael seemed to wrestle with words he hadn't spoken in years. Daniel finally broke it. "How long have you been home?" Michael glanced down at the steam curling from the mug. "A few weeks. I thought it would feel different." But it doesn't. His voice was low, almost as though he was afraid of saying too much. Different how? Daniel asked. Michael's jaw tightened. Like I actually belonged here. Like I could step off base and back into normal life. But everywhere I go, I feel like a stranger. He looked up, meeting Daniel's eyes for a brief moment before looking away. Daniel understood more than he let on. Loss makes the world look different, he said quietly. Michael tilted his head. Loss. Daniel nodded, his eyes drifting toward Lily on the rug. My wife. 3 years ago. Car accident. She loved Christmas more than anyone I knew. Every year she'd bake too many cookies, hang ornaments in places I didn't even know could hold them. Lily was only 4 when it happened. She doesn't remember the details, but she remembers her mother's laughter. Sometimes I think that's what keeps her strong. Michael's shoulders shifted, and for the first time, his expression cracked. He leaned back, rubbing a hand over his face. I'm sorry, he muttered. Daniel shook his head. Don't be. Life. It just changes you. There was a long pause before Michael spoke again. I lost my brother, he admitted, voice thick. 2 years ago. Same unit as me. We grew up dreaming of serving together, and for a while, we did. But he didn't make it back. I keep telling myself I should be grateful I'm still here, but most days it feels like I left the best part of myself over there. Daniel didn't reply right away. He let the weight of Michael's words settle between them. Sometimes silence was the only respect you could give to grief. Suddenly, Lily padded over, holding a small paper star she had made earlier. She looked up at Michael with wide, innocent eyes and held it out. You can put this on our tree too, she said. Then you're part of our Christmas. Michael froze, staring at the fragile star in her little hand. His throat worked as he tried to speak, but no sound came. Carefully, as though it were the most precious thing in the world, he took it from her. His eyes glistened, and he quickly looked down, afraid the tears might spill. Thank you, he whispered. Lily grinned, satisfied, and ran back to her stuffed animals. Later that night, the 3 of them gathered near the fireplace. Lily insisted on Christmas stories. Daniel told one his wife used to read aloud, about a boy who found magic in a snowflake. Lily chimed in with a funny tale about how her teacher tripped during the school play. Then she turned to Michael. Your turn, she demanded. Michael hesitated, but Daniel gave him a small nod. After a long breath, he began. Christmas on the base is different. You don't get trees like this. But sometimes, families send care packages, cookies, socks, little cards from kids we don't even know. We'd pass them around, sing songs even though half of us couldn't carry a tune. For one night, it didn't feel like war. It felt almost like home. His voice broke on the last word. Daniel leaned forward slightly. It matters that you remember that. It means those moments are still alive. Michael swallowed hard, staring into the fire. For the first time in years, he felt the tightness in his chest loosen just a little. Surrounded by the warmth of strangers who had welcomed him without question, he realized he wasn't invisible anymore. The morning light spilled softly through the curtains, casting a golden glow over the small living room. The smell of cinnamon and coffee filled the air, and Lily was already bouncing with excitement. She tugged at Michael's sleeve as he sat quietly on the edge of the couch, still unsure whether he belonged here. Come on, she squealed. It's Christmas morning. Daniel walked in with a smile, holding a small stack of gifts wrapped in simple paper. There weren't many, just a few things he'd managed to put together for Lily, but her joy was boundless. She tore into her presents with squeals of delight. A book, a stuffed bear, a scarf Daniel had knitted in the evenings. Michael watched, his lips tugging into the faintest smile, though there was still a weight in his eyes. Then Daniel set a small box in front of him. Michael blinked. This is for me. Of course, Daniel said simply. Everyone deserves to open a gift on Christmas. Michael's hands trembled slightly as he unwrapped the paper. Inside was a wooden frame holding a faded photograph. Daniel, his wife, and a much younger Lily, all smiling beneath a Christmas tree. On the back, Daniel had written, "Family is found in many ways. Welcome to ours." Michael's breath caught. He stared at the photograph for a long time, unable to speak. His throat burned, and when he finally lifted his gaze, his eyes were wet. I don't know what to say. You don't have to, Daniel said quietly. Just know you're not alone anymore. The words sank deep, piercing through walls Michael had built over years of loss and silence. He gripped the frame like it was something fragile, something sacred. For the first time in so long, he felt the ache of belonging, painful and healing all at once. Later, when Lily grew tired from the excitement and fell asleep on the couch, Daniel and Michael stepped outside. The snow lay thick and untouched, the street quiet except for the muffled sounds of distant bells. Michael shoved his hands into his pockets, staring at the ground. You didn't have to do any of this, he said softly. Daniel looked at him, his breath clouding in the cold air. Maybe not, but I know what it feels like to be sitting in the middle of joy and still feel like you're on the outside. Sometimes all it takes is someone to open the door. Michael's voice cracked as he whispered, I haven't felt part of anything in years. I thought that part of me died with my brother. It didn't, Daniel said firmly. It's still there, and you're welcome here anytime. Lily already thinks you're family. Michael gave a shaky laugh, the sound foreign to his own ears. He looked up at the glowing windows of the little house, warmth spilling out into the cold night. For the first time since his brother's death, he felt the tiniest flicker of hope. When it came time to leave, Lily woke just enough to hug him tightly around the waist. Promise you'll come back next Christmas, she mumbled sleepily. Michael crouched down, meeting her earnest eyes. I promise, he said, his voice steady with something he hadn't felt in years, purpose. As he walked down the snowy path, duffel bag slung over his shoulder, Daniel and Lily stood at the window watching. Michael turned once, lifting a hand in quiet farewell, before disappearing into the falling snow. Daniel rested his hand on Lily's shoulder, and she whispered, Daddy, Christmas is better when we share it. Daniel smiled, his heart full, knowing that their simple invitation had done more than feed a lonely soldier. It had built a bridge between grief and healing, turning one Christmas night into the beginning of something lasting. For Michael, the memory of that warmth would follow him wherever he went, no longer a soldier alone in the cold, but a man who had finally been reminded that he, too, could belong.